Hello, I'm reading from Autobiography of Yogi, starting at the bottom of page 74. This is a song which was written by Mirabi, and it's translated by Yogananda. If by bathing daily God could be realized, sooner would I be a whale in the deep. If by eating roots and fruits he could be known, gladly would I choose the form of a goat. If the counting of rosaries uncovered him, I would say my prayers on mammoth beads. If bowing before stone images unveiled him, a flinty mountain would I humbly worship. If by drinking milk the Lord could be imbibed, many calves and children would know him. If abandoning one's wife could summon God, would not thousands be eunuchs? Mirabi knows that to find the Divine One, the only indispensable is love. Several students put rupees at Bahaduri's slippers, which lay by his side as he sat in yoga posture. This respectful offering, customary in India, indicates that the disciple places his material goods at the Guru's feet. Grateful friends are only the Lord in disguise, looking for his own. Master, you are wonderful. A student, taking his leave, gazed ardently at the patriarchal sage. You have renounced riches and comforts to seek God and teach us wisdom. It was well known that Bahaduri Mahasaya had forsaken great family wealth in his early childhood when single-mindedly he had entered the yogic path. You are reversing the case, the saint's face held in mild rebuke. I have left a few paltry rupees, a few petty pleasures, for a cosmic empire of endless bliss. How then have I denied myself anything? I know the joy of sharing the treasure. Is that a sacrifice? The short-sighted worldly folk are verily the real renunciants. They relinquish an unparalleled divine possession for a poor handful of earthly toys. I chuckled over his paradoxical view of renunciation, one that puts the cap of Croesus on any saintly beggar, whilst transforming all proud millionaires into unconscious martyrs. The divine order arranges our future more wisely than any insurance company. The Master's concluding words were the realized creed of his faith. The world is full of uneasy believers in an outward security. Their bitter thoughts are like scars on their own foreheads. The one who gave us air and milk from our first breath knows how to provide day by day for his devotees. I continued after my after-school pilgrimages to the saint's door. In silent zeal he aided me to attain Abnubhava. One day we moved to Ram Moya Roy Road, away from the neighborhood of my home. His loving disciples had built a new hermitage known as Nigrandra Math. Although it throws me ahead of my story by a number of years, I will recount here the last words given to me by Bahaduri Mahasaya. Shortly before I embarked for the West, I sought him out and humbly knelt for his farewell blessings. Son, go to America. Take the dignity of hoary India for your shield. Victory is written on your brow. The noble distant people will well receive you. And there is an asterisk next to Nigrandra Math. That's the hermitage that the disciples built for Bahaduri Mahasaya. His full name was Nagendranath Bahaduri. A math is strictly speaking a monastery, but the term is often applied to an ashram or hermitage. Among levitating saints of the Christian world was the 17th century Saint Joseph of Cupertino. His feats received ample attestation from eyewitnesses. Saint Joseph exhibited a worldly absent-mindedness that was really a divine recollectedness. His monastery brothers could not permit him to serve at the common table, lest he ascend to the ceiling with the crockery. The saint indeed was uniquely disqualified from earthly duties by his inability to remain for any long period on earth. Often the sight of a holy statue was enough to exalt Saint Joseph into vertical flight. The two saints, one of stone and the other of flesh, would be seen circling together in the upper air. Saint Teresa of Avila, she of the great elevation of soul, found physical elevation very disconcerting. Charged with heavy organizational duties, she vainly tried to prevent her uplifting experiences. But little precautions were unavailing. She wrote, "When the Lord will have it otherwise." But little precautions are unavailing, she wrote, when the Lord will have it otherwise. The body of Saint Teresa, which lies in a church at Albalba in Spain, has for 4 centuries manifest incorruptibility, accompanied by perfume of flowers. The site has witnessed innumerable miracles. Chapter 8. Goddess Chandra Bose's wireless inventions antedated those of Marconi. Overhearing this provocative remark, I walked closer to a sidewalk group of professors engaged in scientific discussion. If my motive in joining them was racial pride, I regret it. I cannot deny my keen interest in evidence that India can play a leading part in physics and not metaphysics alone. "What do you mean, sir?" The professor obligingly explained. "Bose was the first one to invent a wireless coherer and an instrument for indicating the refraction of electric waves. But the Indian scientist did not exploit his inventions commercially. He soon turned his attention to from the inorganic to the organic world. His revolutionary discoveries as a plant psychologist are outpacing even his radical achievements as a physicist." I politely thanked my mentor. He added, "The great scientist is one of my brother professors at Presidency College." I paid a visit the next day to the sage at his home, which was close to mine. I have long admired him from a respectful distance. The grave and retiring botanist greeted me graciously. He was a handsome, robust man in his 50s with thick hair, broad forehead, and the abstracted eyes of a dreamer. The precision in his tones revealed a lifelong scientific habit. I don't know if I started to mention this at the beginning of the page, but this is Chapter 8, India's Great Scientist, J.C. Bose. Beginning again. "I have recently returned from an expedition to scientific societies of the West. Their members exhibited intense interest in delicate instruments of my invention, which demonstrated the indivisible unity of all life. The Bose crescograph has the enormousness of 10 million magnifications. The microscope enlarges only a few thousand times, yet it brought vital impetus to biological science. The crescograph opens incalculable vistas. You have done much, sir, to hasten the embrace of East and West with the impersonal arms of science. I was educated at Cambridge. How admirable is the Western method of submitting all theory to scrupulous experimental verification. That empirical procedure has gone hand in hand with the gift for introspection that is my Eastern heritage. Together they have enabled me to sunder the silences of natural realms long uncommunicated. The telltale charts of my crescograph are evidence for the most skeptical that plants have a sensitive nervous system and a varied emotional life. Love, hate, joy, fear, pleasure, pain, excitability, stupor, and countless other appropriate responses to stimuli are as universal in plants as in animals. The unique throb of all life in all creation could seem like poetic imagery before your advent, Professor. A saint I once knew would never pluck flowers. Shall I rob the rosebush of its pride and beauty? Shall I affront its dignity by my rude divestment? My sympathetic words were verified literally through your discoveries. The poet is intimate with truth, while the scientist approaches awkwardly. Come some day to my laboratory and see the unequivocal testimony of the crescograph. Gratefully I accepted the invitation and took my departure. I heard later that the botanist had left Presidency College and was planning a research center in Calcutta. Okay, there's an asterisk at the beginning of this page which is next to demonstrate the indivisible unity of all life. And that asterisk says, all science is transcendental or else passes away. Botany is now acquiring the right theory. The avatars of Brahma will presently be the textbooks of natural history. That's a quote by Emerson. And there is a cross. Can't find it, but anyway, the cross, next to the cross it says the Latin root crescere, to increase. For his crescograph and other inventions, Bose was knighted in 1917. When the Bose Institute was opened, I attended the dedicatory services. Enthusiastic hundreds strolled over the premises. I was charmed by the artistry and spiritual symbolism in the new home of science. In its front gate is a centuried relic from a distant shrine. Behind the lotus pool, a sculptured female figure with a torch conveys the Indian respect for women as the immortal light bearer. A small temple in a garden is consecrated to the noumenon beyond phenomena. Thought of the divine incorporeity is suggested by the absence of any altar image. Bose's speech on this great occasion might have issued from the lips of one of the inspired ancient Rishis. I dedicate today this institute not as merely a laboratory but a temple. His reverent solemnity stole like an unseen cloak over the crowded auditorium. In the pursuit of my investigations, I have unconsciously led into the border region of physics and physiology. To my amazement, I have found boundary lines vanishing and points of contact emerging between the realms of the living and the non-living. Inorganic matter was perceived as anything but inert, but a thrill under the action of multitudinous forces. A universal reaction seemed to bring metal, plant, and animal under a common law. They all exhibit essentially the same phenomena of fatigue and depression, with possibilities of recovery and exaltation, as well as the permanent unresponsiveness associated with death. Filled with awe at this stupendous generalization, it was with great hope that I announced my results before the Royal Society. Results demonstrated by my experiments. But the physiologist present advised me to confine myself to investigations in physics, in which my success had been assured, rather than to encroach on their preserves, to which my success had been assured, rather than to encroach on my preserves. I had unwittingly strayed into the domain of an unfamiliar caste system and had offended its etiquette. Okay, there is an asterisk next to lotus and behind a lotus pool. It says, the lotus flower is an ancient divine symbol in India. Its unfolding petals suggest the expansion of the soul. The growth of its pure beauty from the mud of its origin holds a benign spiritual promise. Okay, starting again. An unconscious theological basis was also present which confounds ignorance with faith. It is often forgotten that He who has surrounded us with His ever-evolving mystery of creation has also implanted in us the desire to question and understand. Through many years of miscomprehension from others, I came to know that the life of a devotee of science is inevitably filled with the unending struggle. It is for him to cast his life as an ardent offering, regarding pain and loss, success and failure as one. In time, the leading scientific societies of the world accepted my theories and results and recognized the importance of Indian contribution to science. Can anything small or circumscribed ever satisfy the mind of India? By a continuous living tradition and a vital power of rejuvenescence, the land has readjusted itself through unnumbered transformations. Indians have always arisen who, discarding the immediate and the absorbing prize of the hour, have sought for the realization of the highest ideals in life, not through passive renunciation but through active struggle. The weakling who has refused the conflict, acquiring nothing, has had nothing to renounce. He alone who has striven and won can enrich the world by bestowing the fruits of his victorious experience. The work already carried out in the Bose Library on the response of matter and unexpected revelations in plant life have opened out very extended regions of inquiry in physics, in physiology, in medicine, in agriculture, and even in psychology. Okay, there is an asterisk here next to the importance of Indian contribution to science. And next to the asterisk it says, we believe that no department of study, particularly in the humanities, in any manner, in any major university, can be fully equipped without a properly trained specialist in the Indic phases of its discipline. We believe too that every college which aims to prepare its graduates for intelligent work in the world which is to be theirs to live in must have on its staff a scholar competent in the civilization of India. Extracts from an article by Professor W. Norman Brown of the University of Pennsylvania, which appeared in the May 1939 issue of Bulletin of the American Council of Learned Societies, Washington, D.C. Okay, starting again. Problems hitherto regarded as insoluble have now been brought within the sphere of experimental investigation. With high success but high success is not to be obtained without rigid exactitude. Hence the long battery of supersensitive instruments and the apparatus of my design, which stand before you today in their cases in the entrance hall. They tell you of the protracted efforts to get behind the deceptive seeming into the reality that remains unseen, of the continuous toil and persistence and resourcefulness called forth to overcome human limitations. All creative scientists know that the true laboratory is in the mind, where behind illusions they uncover the laws of truth. The lectures given here will not be mere repetitions of second-hand knowledge. they will announce new discoveries demonstrated for the first time in these halls. Through regular publication of the work of the Institute, whose Indian contributions will reach the whole world, they will become public property. No patents will ever be taken. The spirit of our national culture demands that we should forever be free from the desecration of utilizing knowledge only for personal gain. It is my further wish that the facilities of this institute be available so far as possible to workers from all countries. In this I am attempting to carry on the traditions of my country. As far back as 25 centuries, India welcomed its ancient universities at Nalanda and Taxila, scholars from all parts of the world. Although science is neither of the East nor of the West, but rather international in its universality, yet India is specially fitted to make great contributions. And there's an asterisk there. Next to the asterisk it says, the atomic structure of matter was well known by the ancient Hindus. One of the 6 systems of Indian philosophy is Vasikasika, from the Sanskrit root vis-esas, atomic individuality. One of the foremost Valsika's expounders was Alukaya, also known as Kannada, the atom eater, born about 2800 years ago. In an article in Taramata in East West, April 1934, a summary of Valsika scientific knowledge was given as follows. Through the modern atomic theory is generally considered a new advance in science. It was brilliantly expounded long ago by Kannada the atom eater. The Sanskrit anus can be properly translated as atom, in the latter's liberal Greek sense of uncut or indivisible. One scientific expositions of Valasika treatise era of the BC era include 1. The movements of needles toward magnets, 2. The circulation of water in plants, 3. Akash or ether, inert and structureless, as a basis for transmitting subtle forces, 4. The solar fire as the cause of all other forms of heat, 5. Heat as the cause of molecular change, 6. The laws of gravitation as caused by the quality that inheres in earth atoms to give them attractive power or downward pull. 7. The kinetic nature of all energy, causation as always rooted in an expenditure of energy or redistribution of motion. 8. Universal dissolution through the disintegration of atoms. 9. The radiation of heat and light rays, infinitely small particles darting forth in all directions at inconceivable speed, the modern cosmic ray theory. And 10. Relativity of time and space. Vaisika assign the origin of the world to atoms, eternal in their nature, i.e. their ultimate peculiarities. These atoms were regarded as possessing an incessant vibratory motion. The recent discovery of an atom as a miniature solar system would be no news to the old Vaisika philosophers, who also reduced time to its furthest mathematical concept by describing the smallest unit of time, kala, as the period taken by an atom to traverse its own unit of space. That's the end of the asterisks. We're starting back reading again. The burning Indian imagination, which can extort new order out of mass of apparently contradictory facts, is held in check by the habit of concentration. This restraint confers the power to hold the mind to the pursuit of truth with its infinite patience. Tears stood in my eyes as at the scientist's concluding words, "Is patience not yet a synonym for India confounding time and historians alike?" I visited the research center again soon after the day of the opening. The great botanist, mindful of his promise, took me to his quiet laboratory. "I will attach the crescograph to this fern. The magnification is tremendous. If a snail's crawl would enlarge in the same proportion, the creature would appear to be traveling like an express train." My gaze was fixed eagerly on the screen, which reflected the magnified fern shadow. Minute life movements were now clearly perceptible. The plant was growing ever slowly before my fascinated eyes. The scientist touched the tip of the fern with a small metal bar. The developing pantomime came to an abrupt halt, resuming its eloquent rhythms as soon as the rod was withdrawn. "You saw how any slight outside interference is detrimental to the sensitive tissues," Bose remarked. "Watch. I will now administer chloroform and then give an antidote." The effect of the chloroform discontinued all growth, and the antidote was revivifying. The evolutionary gestures on the screen held me more rapidly than any movie plot. My companion, here in the role of villain, thrust a sharp instrument through part of the fern. Pain was indicated by spasmodic flutters. When he passed a razor partially through the stem, the shadow was violently agitated, then stilled itself with the final punctuation of death. By first chloroforming a huge tree, I achieved a successful transplantation. Usually such monarchs of the forest die very quickly after being moved. Jagadish smiled happily as he recounted the life-saving maneuver. "Grafts of my delicate apparatus have proved that trees possess a circulatory system. Their sap movements correspond to the blood pressure of animal bodies. The ascent of sap is not explicable on the mechanical grounds ordinarily advanced, such as capillary action. The phenomena has been revealed through the crescograph as activity of living cells. Peristaltic waves issue from a cylindrical tube which extends down a tree and serves as an actual heart. The more deeply we perceive, the more strikingly becomes the evidence that a uniform plan links every form in manifold nature." The great scientist pointed to another Bose instrument. "I will show you experiments on a piece of tin. The life force in metal responds adversely or beneficially to stimuli. Ink markings will register the various reactions." Deeply engrossed, I watched the graph which recorded the characteristic waves of atomic structure. When the professor applied chloroform to the tin, the vibratory writings stopped. They recommenced as the metal slowly regained its normal state. My companion dispensed a poisonous chemical. Simultaneously with the quivering end of the tin, the needle dramatically wrote on a chart a death notice. The scientist said, "Bose instruments have demonstrated that metals such as the steel used in scissors and machinery are subject to fatigue and regain efficiency by periodic rest. The life pulse in metals is seriously harmed or even extinguished through the application of electric currents or heavy pressure." I looked around the room at numerous inventions, eloquent testimony of his tireless ingenuity. "Sir, it is lamentable that mass agricultural development has not been speeded by fuller use of your marvelous mechanisms. Would it not be easily possible to employ some of them in quick laboratory experiments to indicate the influence of various types of fertilizers on plant growth?" You are right. Countless uses of Bose instruments will be made by future generations. The scientist seldom knows contemporaneousness reward. It is enough to possess the joy of creative service. With expressions of unreserved gratitude on the indefatigable sage, I took my leave. Can the astonishing fertility of his genius ever be exhausted, I thought. Okay, that's it for today. I'm stopping at the beginning of the last paragraph on page 84.